Hello there, everybody, and welcome back to CirclingSeattleSport on Converge Media. Interesting sort of week. There's only one team that played over this past week as the Seahawks were on the bye week. Interesting sort of things going on here as today the men's national team, the U.S. men's national team for soccer is playing in the World Cup. They just finished up a draw against Wales, which splitting points is fine. But interesting week. There's plenty to go over. There's plenty of good news to look at. Some news from our teams that aren't even they're in the off season but have been quiet for I would say some of them months now. Bell, I think you'd agree with that. But we'll get into sort of Seahawks, and to start the show off, I know they didn't play this past week. It was their bye week. The Seahawks did somehow get a little bit better, though, as with a Devontae Adams walk-off touchdown for the Raiders. The Denver Broncos first-round pick that we received in the Russell Wilson trade this year, I believe it was, someone said top 5. I don't know if that's correct. I thought it was top 5. So just to kick off the show, I wanted to sort of take a look at how we're feeling about our Seahawks sitting atop the NFC West, 6-4 at the time, and having that top 10 pick. We look at all of the sort of things, whether it's Geno Smith's play, the emergence of Ken Walker III, the emergence of this rookie class as a whole, still getting contribution. It feels like you can always say you want to get DK Metcalf the ball more, but just the usage of the tight ends, the turnaround of this defense outside of the first half of the Germany game. But what are your thoughts about our Seahawks top to bottom as we sit here at the end of the bye week now, have to prepare for the Raiders, coming off the bye week? What are your thoughts on this team currently?
First, I'll say that the trade just keeps getting better for us. I don't think that any of us expected to be sitting at the top of the NFC West division. And then now, of course, as you mentioned, with that Devontae Adams touchdown, a higher pick than we received. So yeah, it keeps getting better, and our team is still looking good. Like you said, it was a quiet week. Of course, they were on bye, but as you said, also more improvement as Trey Brown was activated from the PUP list. So hopefully he gets some in-game action this week. On some not so good news, but also doesn't affect his gameplay so much, DK Metcalf was fined $29,785 for unsportsmanlike conduct in the loss to the Bucs. And I don't know if that happened in the beginning half, but I don't recall what it was that got him that fine. Do you?
So I know both parts of it, because I remember when this took place, DK had wanted a offensive pass interference call as the Seahawks were kind of getting down near the end zone. I think it was on third down, and this penalty that he got, this unsportsmanlike conduct, actually pushed the Seahawks back to about a 50-yarder, and Jason Myers still was able to nail it. So it didn't necessarily end up mattering in the long run, but it does cost DK now $30,000 nearly. I believe the main thing that actually got him the flag and perhaps the fine was that, there was the initial video that was shown on the broadcast where he was just kind of talking to the referee. A second angle showed that as the teams were getting back into their respective huddles, DK pointed at the referee. And some said that the ruling from the official that was help watching on the broadcast was that it made it personal, and that's where the flag came out. But $30,000 for a point, it seems a little bit excessive, when there are other things that this league should be worried about, whether it's, slit film turf or the lawsuit that they have now in regards to that turf, from a former Broncos linebacker. But I don't know. I think it's a little bit ridiculous. I didn't see anything really in that instance that really necessitated a fine. The flag, sure, I'll deal with it. Again, it didn't end up necessarily hurting the Seahawks in the long run in that game. They were going to make the field goal regardless, thanks to Jason Myers. But yeah, I thought it was ridiculous. But no, to the point, I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on it, where we're at with this team, because I know that a little bit before that game against the Buccaneers started, a report came out that the Seahawks do want to keep Geno Smith long term. I got some comments for that after his first half play, and I was like, man, that's ridiculous. But with the way that this rookie class is performing and the sort of performances that you've got out of Uchenna Nwosu, the free agent cornerbacks have kind of been a letdown, because, or maybe that's more of an instance of the rookie corners showing out more than the veteran cornerbacks being disappointing. I mean, again, you signed Justin Coleman, Artie Burns, Sidney Jones was brought back and then released now a few weeks ago. But you got your young corners who have taken those spots. So I don't know. Where do you feel that we're at with this team? How much hope do you have going into the remaining 7 games on the year? I know that we played the Rams twice. You have to go and play Kansas City, which it's not the worst road ahead, but it shouldn't be a cakewalk either necessarily. I know the Rams have really been a disappointment this season, but I know they have a ton of talent still. Aaron Donald still gives me nightmares. So I don't know. I just want to see what sort of thoughts you had about those first 10 games and how we're heading into these next 7.
Yeah, I mean, I think they needed a loss. I think they were due for a loss, and that was what happened here with Tampa. But this is also going to be exciting to watch because, as we mentioned, Davante Adams and him helping us get a pick, they're also coming off a win now. We'll be playing them next, and we don't know how much momentum they have, how much energy that win has given them, because they've had kind of a rocky start to their season. But I'm pretty confident with where our team sits. I think there have been games in those first few games where we were unsure as to how they were going to go. I think Arizona was one of those when we first started talking about the season, and they've just been dominant. So I think they got their bad loss out of the way, and it wasn't I wouldn't say it was a bad game. It was a bad half. And so they were able to recourse in that second half. And yeah, I just think they pick up from there. And I really do see us getting to those 10 wins sooner than later.
I know that because you agreed with Pete Carroll, from what I understand. You said, yes, that's something that's doable. Again, I've made my apologies, so I'm done making those. But I think what you said about the Raiders is really interesting because you look at, like you said, the sort of, it was a walk-off, yeah. But then just a week before with that loss to the Colts, who have just Saturday as their coach, and that's its own thing. That's its own issue. Derek Carr crying after that loss, getting very emotional, the frustration. I know that it hasn't been how the Raiders or their fans have wanted it to be to begin the year, but you gotta wonder about that. You gotta wonder, what 1 week can do for them. So that's a good point. So let's just take a look now at league news here with some interesting stuff. Luckily, there's nothing too bad. Well, I mean, at least in our opinions, maybe for the respective teams, but yeah, I'll let you get to that.
Yeah, we have some more Goodell news. So Goodell issues conduct memo. Roger Goodell threatens significant discipline for violations of NFL's alcohol policy after Todd Downing's Titans OC DUI arrest. So, again, doesn't really affect us. This other one is more kind of a big deal on the sanitary side of things. The Jag Stadium apparently has several violations, TIA Bank Field concessions violations, including finding 2 dead rodents. That's disgusting.
That's terrible. Not game day experience. Very bad.
No. I can't see myself as someone that goes to the arena ever buying food there again.
Hopefully, yeah. I wonder how many Jags fans that are left that would want to endure that. So, I don't know.
But that about wraps it up for our NFL section here. A pretty short week. We were on bye, not much to report on there. So we still sit at 6-4 in the NFC West, and our next matchup is on Sunday after Thanksgiving against the Raiders. So hopefully they don't have too much turkey and can move quickly still.
Oh, goodness. Okay. We look over here to our Mariners segment, and I mean, tell me, when I texted you about this, or even when the news broke, how surprised we were. Probably very little.
Minimal. More excited.
As I'm sure everyone could have guessed, and as sure as you've seen, Julio Rodriguez was named the AL Rookie of the Year. The 21-year-old led Major League rookies in homers, B-WAR, F-WAR. I know we went over this last week, but we're going to go over it again just so we can stick this point. A 509 slugging percentage, an 853 OPS, WRC plus of 146, 260 total bases. That's all what he led Major League rookies in. So there's a mouthful there, and that's what he led the entirety of the young class of baseball in, ranking second in runs, third in hits, second in RBI, second in extra base hits, and second in stolen bases. Julio becomes the fifth Mariners player to win the Rookie of the Year award, joining Alvin Davis, Mr. Mariner, Kazuhiro Sasaki, Ichiro Suzuki, and Kyle Lewis. Kyle Lewis' name is a sore subject for me. We'll get to that later. So in addition to the Baseball Writers of America Association American League Rookie of the Year award, which is basically just the AL Rookie of the Year award, the official one, Julio was named a Silver Slugger, Baseball America's Major League Rookie of the Year, Sporting News AL Rookie of the Year, and the Players' Choice Awards AL Outstanding Rookie of the Year. Again, just as the bottom text here on our little banner says, who's surprised? You look at all of these nominations being named to the All-Star team, the only rookie to do so this past season, becoming the fourth player age 21 and younger to win Rookie of the Year and win a Silver Slugger and be an All-Star. So Rookie of the Year, All-Star, Silver Slugger, outside of Fernando Valenzuela, infielder Albert Pujols. That Pujols guy is pretty good. And Mike Trout, also pretty good. Becoming the first player with 25-plus homers and 25-plus stolen bases in his debut season, as well as the fastest person to do that. I mean, was there any doubt? I mean, you got to see him play for a good amount throughout the season, became a lot of people's fans' favorite, including a shout-out to my friend Matt, wherever he is out there. Well, I don't know. What's your take? Obviously, this is not something that we were surprised about, but any sort of final words or thoughts on it, now that it's officially official. Julio went back actually to the Dominican Republic and had this big welcome. I'm sure you've seen it. So I don't know, just your thoughts on it as someone who was also there to enjoy that incredible first year for Julio.
Yeah, I think it's well deserved. I think that he definitely joined a fan in me as well. And I feel lucky that our coverage started in his rookie season because now we just get to see him grow from here. So yeah, very well deserved. And that was very heartwarming to see him go home and celebrate in the DR with all of his friends and family and all the fans that he has there too. So yeah.
It's just, again, to put it in perspective that his birthday is in December, so maybe you should send him something. Just being a 21-year-old to have the impact that he did to, at least by WAR and by all those metrics, the most valuable player on this team. I think he actually had a MVP vote. I think he was for the seventh place in MVP voting or something along that line. Just incredible to think about, and had some of those issues injury-wise towards the end of the year. But to his point, I don't think he's played that much baseball in his life over the course of a season yet. So just making sure. It was interesting with the end of the year interviews to hear from Jerry DiPoto, Justin Hollander, Scott Service, just say, go be a kid, go be 21, take some time off of baseball. But I'm sure he's not taking too much time. He'll celebrate, as he's in the DR with his girlfriend, Jordan Haitama, being celebrated and all that. But I'm sure at some point he'll get back to it. And it's, you've got him locked up for a long, long time, which is a very, very good thing. So it was also interesting when this was officially announced, there was a presser following that. And Mariners general manager Justin Hollander actually said that he missed the official Rookie of the Year award announcement because he was on the phone working on a potential trade. So that's a perfect segue. We'll hold the segue, I guess, for a minute and look at some of the roster moves. With the Rule 5 draft coming up, the Mariners had to make some roster adjustments on the 15th. Prelander Baroa, Isaiah Campbell, Jonathan Clase, and Cade Marlowe were all named to the 40-man roster, filling it up. Then we get to the trades here. After some other stuff, some guys were released, and so to make room, on November 16th, the Mariners acquired former All-Star Teoscar Hernandez in a trade from the Blue Jays. Seattle receiving the outstar right fielder former Silver Slugger. And Toronto receives relief pitcher Eric Swanson and left-handed pitcher Adam Mako, who is a pitching prospect actually from Slovakia. So to look at that, this is a big deal in and of its own, because I know that the big discussion that we've been talking about with the Mariners this offseason has been adding more offense, adding more of an impact bat, and a middle of the order guy, and that's exactly what Teoscar is. He's a great hitter. I'm not going to say he's a perfect hitter because he's had some issues with strikeouts. Could keep his eye out a little bit more and get some more walks. But this is an impact addition. It sucks to lose a guy like Swanson, who had some great numbers this past year. I know some people wanted him used more down the stretch and in the playoffs. Mako, it sucks to lose a guy that was, I believe, is a top 25 prospect, but to that point, at some point when you want to become a contender, you want to really push yourselves over the edge, you're going to need to lose some young talent, and you're going to have to compromise. This move also had some comments about if might signal the departure of Mitch Haniger. I know that Dipoto and Hollander have said that they're in healthy discussions with him, and both sides want to get a deal done. And in the presser about Teoscar, they said that he can play either corner, which is very interesting considering the kind of logjam in a sense that you have in left field. But there was a report that came out today that the Dodgers and the Angels are interested in Haniger as well. So it's interesting, but to get a guy like Hernandez is a win. I know that there's concern over the fact that he's only under club control this year, but Jerry Dipoto said that if all things go well, they're gonna extend him. It's a big deal. That's a big deal. I know that's something that you've seen it, Bell. I've said it. I said it over the past year. Anybody that read the articles knows that something that I wanted was more offensive consistency, and this is the guy that's going to help that. You want to be able to look at this lineup and minimize the guys who are, higher likely to get out than get on base. You want to be able to maximize that every day. You don't want to see a lineup and say, well, he's not going to do well. He's not going to do well, So this is a great addition. Again, he's got a great bat. He's not great defensively. I'm not going to say he is, but the bat is what you were looking for. The offense is the key component. The very next day, the team traded outfielder Kyle Lewis to the Arizona Diamondbacks in exchange for Cooper Hummel. You can see there probably my favorite photo of Lewis, captured by Matt Bermudez. It's unfortunate sort of look here because, when it was hitting it was the goodbye. You can see the goodbye baseball screen on there, but now it seems goodbye as he's leaving. It's very disappointing. So the Mariners receive outfielder/catcher Cooper Hummel. Yes, outfielder/catcher. A little bit of an odd combination. Hummel is a 27-year-old. He appeared in 66 games with the Diamondbacks during the 2022 season, batting 176 with 20 runs, 8 doubles, 3 triples, 3 homers, 17 RBIs, and 4 stolen bases. He's 5'10", 198 pounds, out of Portland. So I know that he talked about growing up as a Mariners fan, so I guess that's cool. He appeared defensively in 18 games as a catcher, in left field 21 games, and in right field only 2 games. He also played as the DH in 16 games, over 6 minor league seasons with the Brewers, and a few with the Diamondbacks. He holds a career .397 on base percentage over 443 games with 256 runs, 78 doubles, 15 triples, 48 homers, 219 RBIs, 20 stolen bases, and 277 walks. So, we know about Kyle Lewis. He's a guy that has incredible talent. They're actually both 27. He only appeared in 18 games this past year with the Mariners, won the 2020 Rookie of the Year, but in 22 and 21, only played a combined 54 games. It's tough. It's a tough move. I know there was a lot of, so why did you make this move? I know part of that is because of the limited production and limited statistics from Hummel, as well as the fact that Kyle Lewis kind of became a fan favorite. Kind of became a guy that you wanted to root for, blowing out his knee in Everett, basically ACL, MCL, LCL, just ripped out. And to be able to come, smash a homer off of Trevor Bauer in his first game back in September of 2019 to win the Rookie of the Year 2020 and give us a bunch of memories in that. Even this year, he smashed a couple home runs when he was able to be back there, got hit in the head with a ball, had a concussion. There's several reasons that he became a fan favorite, and unfortunately, as a fan, a big fan of Kyle Lewis, I think it came down and extends to an availability thing. Jerry DiPoto said that they wanted to get him a fresh start. They know that it's been tough for him, again and again, not been able to really stay healthy. They said it was tough for them to make that trade, because Kyle Lewis was one of the first guys that DePoto and that front office actually drafted. So he's kind of been on that track with them. They also liked what Hummel brings offensively. And I know just with the Mariners and what they do, his versatility is what they like as well, being able to play catcher, being able to play outfield. But it's tough. I can understand the frustration, but it's not as questionable maybe or mind-boggling to me as some others think, just because of the fact that whether it's availability, knowing that with where you're at this season, having come off that playoff appearance and wanting to win and be able to contend, you can't really wait on guys to an extent. And that was a thing that DePoto said, is we wanted to have people that were ready now, and we weren't sure about that with him, which that's really tough. It's really tough. So it's unfortunate, but at the end of the day, these sports are all businesses, and I still will hope for Kyle with the best. So unfortunate, tough. Do you have any thoughts on that, Bill?
Yeah, I mean, I think that all I can say is it's tough to go from being the rookie of the year to then only playing 54 games in the next 2 seasons. So I understand the hesitancy to keep him, but hopefully his departure works well for the club that he's going to and the Mariners. So
Luckily, they're not division rivals either, so it's not like I have too much of a rooting interest difference. So we'll look towards some league notes here, as again, it's still the offseason and the free agency is kind of pushing along. It's like a caterpillar, just going slow. On the 17th, it was announced that the 2024 All-Star Game was awarded to the Texas Rangers. The Rangers will host the 2024 Midsummer Classic and accompanying All-Star Week events. I don't like that. Have you seen photos of their ballpark?
mm-mm.
Okay, when you get time, look up the Texas Rangers ballpark. It looks like a giant warehouse. It's horrible. It's terrible. I think, I don't know, Texas, I disagree with that. I know that the 2025 game, they're still trying to figure out the host for that, but 2026 will go to Philadelphia. Sure, but Texas, I don't like that ballpark, so I have an opinion on that. With free agency, there's still some big names that are figuring things out, including Aaron Judge. Some news on Judge, which is he's a far shot, but I can have a hope, okay? I want to win the AL MVP, said he wants to be on a team with a winning culture and a commitment to winning. The Yankees did make him a new offer. General manager Brian Cashman announced that the Yankees are waiting on his answer. And the Dodgers, of course, the Dodgers want Aaron Judge, saying that they'll make a run at Judge after shedding $100 million off of their roster. I don't think they'll be able to make it work. But it's, I've seen crazier things happen before. So that'll be an interesting saga to follow, as well as where the top 4 shortstop on this market all end up. But as Jerry DiPoto said, that this is probably going to inch along. We probably won't hear too much this week, as it's Thanksgiving week. We'll pick up probably after that as we get closer to the December general manager meeting. So we'll keep an eye on that. Sadly, there's no Storm news, as the Storm overseas website on the Storm website hasn't been updated. There are only going to be a few games played over the past week, but we don't have too much news on them. So, Belle, why don't I hand the reins over to you for the Sounders segment?
All right, let's do it. Which, again, the Sounders are also not in season, but we still have a tidbit of news, and that is team news. So on the 15th, the club exercised the 2023 contract option of Sam Adeniran. Can you say that for me?
Adeniran.
There we go. I didn't want to butcher it. Thank you. Adeniran led SAFC with 12 goals in 24 appearances, including the postseason, most recently scoring the game-winning strike in Sunday's 3-1 win over Louisville City in the USL Championship final. And also on the 15th, the club declines the contract option for Freddie Montero. The veteran remains in active discussions with the club, and Seattle's roster now sits at 25 contracted players heading into next season.
Kind of an interesting sort of two moves there. I know that was the plan with Adeniran, was that earlier in this past MLS season, the level of competition for him on the Defiance was low. The Seattle Sounders thought, hey, you're doing a little bit too well. We're going to send you to San Antonio. He helps them reach that championship final, and they say, okay, we saw enough. We'll bring it back. So he'll probably feature a good bit on the main roster this upcoming season. The declining of the contract auction with Montero, I know that some people see that decline part. They're all, whoa.
Yeah.
But I'm sure it's more of a just figuring out money-wise, and maybe I know that the Sounders, they let Will Bruin walk, and they're talking about getting a backup striker. So I'm wondering how much of it is, hey, let you guys figure out what you're going to get, and then maybe I'll make my move after that. So I don't know. Interesting to see kind of the youth in Adeniran and a guy like Freddie Montero, who's been around in different stints with this club, the two contrasting moves there. But with that, talking about the offseason, I don't know how well it's going to be able to see there. But the Armory is having World Cup watch parties. There was that one earlier today. I'll do it again. Handing out these little towels here. Hey, they got the space. That's what that was. I only looked at it really quickly. But so the Armory's having watch parties. They had one today for U.S. versus Wales. It was packed. I didn't expect it to be packed on a Monday, but lo and behold, a bunch of people brought laptops. So I'm sure people were doing virtual work.
Awesome.
The next one will be on Friday, and then which is actually against England, which is a big deal. And then the next one will be Tuesday. And unfortunately, I won't be able to make any of those. So I'm hoping that they're able to make it out of the group stage. And hopefully there will be more of these watch parties. I know that Jordan Morris was able to make it in for some minutes and got subbed on in the 88th minute for Tim Weah, who actually scored the only goal for Team USA. Had a draw, unfortunately gave up an 82nd minute penalty to Gareth Bale. It's a good showing. I mean, they had a good first half. Tim Weah actually becomes the first person to score a goal against Wales in the World Cup since Pele, which it's a long time. But no, knowing that I'll put this up on the screen here. There are 4 Sounders players who are playing in the World Cup. Jordan Morris and Christian Roldan, obviously, on the U.S. team. Javier Arriaga helped Ecuador beat Iran, host country Iran, yesterday on Sunday. So good for him. Good to see that. Iran actually became the first host country to lose their opening game, which
that's not a good stat.
Good to take a look there. We'll try to keep as much as we can with the statistics and how our Sounders do in the World Cup. So that'll be interesting to know. I know there's a lot of controversy around that, and there's some notes that we'll look at. I know that a journalist actually was held for 30 minutes by officials at the match because he had a rainbow shirt on. There's a lot of discussion to go in. You know what? No, we're going to go into it. We're going to take a look into it because this is a big deal. So there was that. The beer was banned at the World Cup. Alcoholic beer will not be sold in and around the stadiums in Qatar. It was 2 days before the tournament began. They announced this, and one of the major sponsors was Budweiser. There were plans to wear a captain's armband with that supported LGBTQ plus. Had rainbow on and had other designs. Several countries were planning to wear that, but that was announced that wouldn't happen. Yes, early this morning, several European teams have nixed their plans to wear the anti-discrimination captain's armbands at the World Cup after FIFA threatened them with sanctions. So follow along with me here. World Cup journalist detained. As I mentioned, Qatari authorities held longtime soccer writer Grant Wall for 30 minutes because of his rainbow LGBTQ shirt. There's a lot of controversy around that, and I understand that is why a bunch of people, I'll put the banner here, but why a lot of people aren't going to watch this year's World Cup, and I respect that. I respect that decision because there's a lot of controversy around how a good amount of people lost their lives actually creating the stadiums and putting time into, getting this World Cup. There was thoughts that there was corruption for Qatar to even get this World Cup in general, how they got the bid for it. How they had to put in millions and billions of dollars, and I think it was $20 billion to fund this World Cup. That's more than all the past World Cups combined. It's a big, So I understand if there are folks who aren't going to pay attention to it, and I respect that decision. But just, reading those last few headlines, it's tough. And so if there's any question about why it's controversial and why some people might not support it, just go over those past headlines. So wanted to touch on that because it felt wrong to sort of say what I did and then not go over those headlines. So we're going to shift and try to change the tone here as we look at our Kraken, Bell. So why don't we look at last two games before these two was like, they're tight and disappointing. And then they kept it tight, but they won these two. So why don't we take a look at those?
Yeah, our Kraken just had a thrilling couple of games. They played on the 17th versus the New York Rangers, and they won in overtime 3-2. Our player of the game was Justin Schultz with 2 goals, 2 points, a 2 plus minus, and 5 shots, and the OT game winner. And on the 19th, they won with the exact same score against the LA Kings, a 3-2 game in OT. Player of the game was Jordan Eberle with 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 points, 3 shots, 1 hit, and 1 block, and also the OT game winner.
So, you talk about those OT. Well, you talk about game one. And when we look at the stats here, that's a perfect segue to our player of the week. And looking at it, it just made total sense. So we had a pretty eventful week. 2 goals, 2 assists, 4 points for Justin Schultz, a 4 plus minus, 5 shots, and a game winner against the Rangers. That's actually his first ever multi-goal game in his career. And he's been around quite a bit. So, what have you been able to see from this team over the past 2 games? I know we talked about it with the loss to Winnipeg, the 1-0 shutout against the Wild that was unfortunate. But I know that, so just to fill in on this, I know that after that overtime loss to Winnipeg, that this team has been practicing 3-on-3, practicing their overtime game, trying to be more patient with the puck, not rush into risky decisions, thinking about making that next pass as opposed to just risking it all. And it's paid off with these 2 winners. I know that we look at it before these 2 losses again, and you're like, okay, someone said, are they in a skid right now? I said, no, they lost an overtime game, which does get you, thankfully, in hockey, it gets you 1 point still towards your standings. And that's the only reason why the Kraken aren't in second place in their division, because in that overtime win against LA, both teams at least get 1 point. So LA, we would be tied with them in points right now, but because they got the 1 point, they hold the advantage for second place. But these are games that this team would lose last year. They weren't able, it just felt like they weren't able to, they'd stick in it, they'd show a hell of a fight, but they wouldn't be able to stick around. I don't know, what have you garnered, from whatever attention you've been able to pay to this team in regards to what you're seeing, their success, how they might have been different than last year?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's important to note, like you said, they had just lost an overtime win. They had struggles against these teams. I believe we lost to the Rangers the last time we played them.
Yep, first ever win against the Rangers, actually.
And isn't it against the Kings as well? Because I believe we lost both against the Kings last season.
No, we have wins against them. We had we played a back-to-back against them where we torched them in the first last year towards the end of the year, and then lost the second. And then our first win of the year actually this season came against them after an overtime loss to the Ducks. So shows the overtime stuff. But yeah, we Kings with the division, we see them more often. Some struggles, but not too much. But yeah, with the Rangers, that was your first win against them ever. So over the original 6, I have to think about. I'll do that while you talk. But you get another. That's your first win against another one of the original 6 teams. So it's good to see. But
and
I'll
like
look
you
at
said, these are games that we would have previously lost. I just think it looks a lot cleaner in OT right now, and obviously
yes.
the practice is paying off for them. So, yeah, I thought they were calm and collected, and Schultz just took the shot at the right time and got them the win. So it looks cleaner, it looks well executed, and they look patient. So
I think that's a great point, is cleaner, just being better in it, because that's what it was. You watch these guys a bunch of the times in overtime before, and it's like they're rushing into things. They're trying to cut through the zone, cut through three guys. It's just almost like selfish in a way. There were a bunch of times where in these last overtime games where I like Jared McCann, a great example, was bringing the puck up into the ozone for the other team and was going to rush into it, and he said, "No, I had a shot, but I'm going to turn around and think about it and take a different look at it." And they were able to obviously get the win later. Some patient play and a defensive poke by Justin Schultz. Actually, our play of the week got a poke. Poke the puck out ahead to Jordan Eberle in that game against the Kings, caused a breakaway and like that. So I think that's a great word to use, it is cleaner. And I was looking at the original six, and you've won all your game. You've won a game against all of them except for the Maple Leafs, I believe, against the Maple Leafs. I don't want to sit here and kill our time looking it up on Google. So if I'm wrong, you can correct me. But it's a good sign, because again, this is something that I wouldn't have seen from this team last year, and to get contribution like this from Schultz, a guy who's kind of been up and down this season, is good to see, knowing that, Matty Beniers he got back on the point sheet this past game, but he's kind of been quiet offensively. Jared McCann hadn't scored for a while before his goal against the Rangers. Daniel Sprong had been quiet as well, I believe against the Kings, actually. So some guys who had been quiet are coming back here. Philip Grubauer, not to cut into your injury news segment here, is back and now backing up again. Martin Jones is still playing well. So there are a lot of good signs here for this team, and it's really exciting. Again, I know that I think a few weeks ago we talked about the plan that Ron Francis had was 3 to 5 years from inception to make playoffs, and this is year 2. And you're still hanging around. You're still in 3rd place in your division, and sooner rather than later, you could be in 2nd place. So these are good signs. These are all good signs.
Now, as you teased here, we do have some injury news on Grubauer, and it might be a little outdated now, but on the 17th, Grubauer says that he should be good to go by the weekend. On the 18th, he was activated off of IR. Gustav Olofsson was reassigned to Coachella Valley Firebirds in a corresponding move to Grubauer being activated off of IR.
So, yeah, this was something that I know it's controversial. And I'm sure, Bell, that if you see anything Kraken related, there are the comments about Philip Grubauer, it's unfortunate because some of the morning skates I've gone to where he's out there, it's like some Kraken fans want proof of life that they're out there, and I'm like, yep, he's on the ice. And people go, oh, great, our expensive backup goalie. I hope he doesn't come back. It's like, that's a little bit harsh. It's a little bit ridiculous to think about, because, again, this is a guy that goes out, got overworked to an extent last year. A lot of the goals against him were not his fault. And a lot of guys have been given a second chance. Martin Jones is a guy who struggled last year, I believe, with Philadelphia. Has had some tough times in San Jose, and he's making a great name for himself right now with this team. Why can't Grubauer get that same chance? Why can't he get that same sort of second chance and get that same sort of leeway? I'm going to give it to him. If he able to come back and play well, and you see these fans, oh, we've always loved. You got to keep an eye on that. You got to keep an eye on that. So I know we look at some team news that also kind of draws the talk of the fans here.
Yeah, on November 20th, they assigned Shane Wright to the Coachella Valley Firebirds. Wright is on a one-time conditioning load, meaning he can spend 14 days with the team. Would you like to say something regarding that?
Yeah, so again, going similar to Grubauer, with Shane Wright, he has been the talk of the NHL world, like, oh, this number 4 overall pick, why isn't he playing? There was the headline from Yahoo was that after a disappointing start to the season, when you're winning games, there are 4 lines offensively in hockey, right? And the 4th line for this team, technically the bottom of the barrel, quote unquote, it isn't right necessarily because they switch lines so often, but technically your 4th line guys aren't necessarily your big stars. The 4th line for the Kraken have been playing really well. They've been Daniel Sprong is a guy who's playing on a 1-year deal. Ryan Donato got brought back on a 1-year deal. Even Morgan Geekie is someone that they're all guys who are fighting for their future. You know what I mean? And they've been playing well. So if I'm winning games, if I have great contributions from Morgan Geekie, Ryan Donato, and Daniel Sprong, Why am I taking one of them out of the lineup? Why would I do that? And Shane Wright is 18 years old. He's a 4th overall pick. I understand that. I know that different rookies around the league are getting more playing time. But at the end of the day, why would you comparatively take it at your own pace? Just take it at your own pace. He'll go on this conditioning loan with Coachella Valley over the 14 days. He's at practice today with them right now. He can play 5 games maximum with them over that 14-day span. And then what's likely to happen is that as soon as he's done with that 14-day loan, he'll go and play with Team USA because they have something coming up in December. He'll be fine. Again, I will say this. He'll just be fine. I am not worried about him. I'm sure it's kind of like an instant gratification sort of thing, or like, oh, number 4 overall pick. And there was all this excitement that he fell to us. And then, he's a guy that's been put in the spotlight because of his talent and his potential since he was really young.
Mm-hmm.
And it's
He
like
was
even
really young.
yeah. So, it's like certain guys, that expectations put on you. And then when you enter the league and you're not, mashing from minute 1, it's like, oh, he's a disappointment. We don't swear on this show. Give him a break, So I'm not worried about him. I really hope that he goes down to Coachella and just rips people apart.
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, I know that we try to keep the minor league coverage too low until we're able to get that sort of manpower. We're going to keep up with Shane Wright. So keep up with that. Look forward to that these next few weeks. But then we'll get to Martin Jones here, who, again, he was my star of the week the last 2 weeks. I thought about it this week when I saw this note, but I was like, I can't do 3 weeks in a row.
Yeah. But I mean, maybe you should have, because Martin Jones was just named the NHL's 3rd star of the week. Martin Jones went 2-0-0 with a 1.90 goal against average and a .932 save percentage to guide the team. 10-5-3 with 23 points is where they currently stand, to a pair of overtime wins. So a very good week for him. And yeah, I couldn't blame you if you did go with him for your player of the week.
I thought about it, but ultimately I went with someone else down the stretch here. So why don't we look at what's coming up next for these guys? They come up to the end of a 6-game homestand. There's been a lot of hockey. I mean, I got the Team USA hat on from yesterday, and we won't talk. That's technically not in our Circling Seattle Sports coverage. We will have an article for that later. Liv Lyons got great photos on the ice for that. But it's been a long week of hockey. It's been a long weekend of hockey. Comes to an end on Wednesday here, but let's look ahead to and then after that Kings game, Seattle will play 4 straight divisional games, and these next 3 are all up this upcoming week. So why don't we take a look at that?
Yeah, so a day before Thanksgiving, on the 23rd, they will play the San Jose Sharks. That's a 7 p.m. puck drop. And then they play again the day after Thanksgiving at Las Vegas Golden Knights, and that's a 5 p.m. puck drop. And then on November 27th at Anaheim against the Ducks for another 5 p.m. puck drop.
When they say they play a lot of games in hockey, they're not kidding. So we'll keep an eye on that, obviously, because that's what we do. Looking over to our OL Reign here, who are in the offseason as well, but with sort of free agency and offseason, continuing on, some roster moves were made on the 15th. We'll look through that. Some options for 2023 were exercised, including Olivia Athens, Claudia Dickey, Laurel Ivory, and Olivia Vanderyacht that you see pictured here. The Reign retained the rights for 2 loan players for 2023, Ryan Brown and Alyssa Melanson. Both are currently on loan with FC. I'm not going to try that. Over in the Danish Women's League, those a move that the Reign wanted to see them get some more playing time. They weren't going to see the time or the field with the first team, so they sent them on loan, and then we'll have them back for next year. Interesting to see what sort of contributions that they might make this upcoming season. They're currently in discussions with Marley Canales for a new contract. No word on that yet. Waiving the rights of Sinclair Miramontes and Yodi Elkukel. And then currently some big names here that are eligible for free agency. Lauren Barnes, Lou Barnes, Tobin Heath, Megan Rapinoe, and Nikki Stanton. So just to look at that, I want to look at that. Normally that's all we've got for our Reign off-season news. But those four names there at the bottom, with Rapinoe, after the loss in the semifinal to Kansas City, Rapinoe basically said, "Why would I go anywhere else?" So I don't.
Mhm.
She's at and I'm not calling her old just to say that she's old, but at her stage in her career, where she probably wants to stay fit, stay in the proper shape for the upcoming Women's World Cup this next year, um, in a familiar situation with a coach that she likes, with a team that continues to compete. Why would she go why would she go somewhere else? It doesn't. That's you look at all the facts. At least it doesn't make sense for her to go anywhere else. Lou Barnes is interesting. I know I talked to Lou in an interview this past year where I asked about the expansion teams. Lou is someone that's from California, so having the expansion teams of LA and San Diego, it's tough because she does have family down there, and wanting to do that, it would be tough.
Mhm.
But from what I understand, it doesn't seem like she's likely to go anywhere. So again, another one that I would say unlikely. Tobin Heath is a name that's interesting. I would love to see Tobin Heath back with this club. In the limited games that she did play with the Reign, she was able to be productive. Had a game winner against Angel City down in LA in a great 3-2 comeback win. But I know that certain that Twitter will have fun with this, but I believe they're partners. Kristen Press plays down for Angel City in LA, so it would make sense if Heath wanted to go down and join her. But I know that following up with Tobin, uh, whether it was in players' Instagram stories or just what you could see from Heath, it seemed like she enjoyed being in Seattle. She said she likes the West Coast. Won't go back to Portland, but there's some hope there, I'd hope. And then Nikki Stanton to wrap up. Nikki Stanton's from North Bend. She's on a team that's competing, is able to help with the midfield. So again, another one. So 3 out of 4 players I'm confident would return to the Reign. I'd like to see that. Heath, I would put about 75-25 in terms of unlikely, but 3 out of 4 is pretty good, at least numbers wise, I'd think. So
Who would you be most shocked if they didn't make their return?
most shocked or disappointed? Shocked is what you asked, but is that
Yeah, I guess disappointed.
disappoint? Well, it would suck to lose Lou Barnes just because of the captain mantle that she holds. And she's an original, and you could say the same about Rapinoe, but I would say shocked Rapinoe because of the fact
Yeah.
that she basically said, I don't have anywhere else to be. I wouldn't want to. Essentially, that's not word for word, but if I'm paraphrasing, that's what she said in that final presser after the semifinal. So shocked, Pino. Disappointed or sad, Lou. So we'll go. Lou's a friend of mine, so I say that also in that terminology as well. So those are important decisions, to look at with the options exercise. That's the youth of your club there. The same with the rights retaining. But that free agency, it's great to see these players finally get free agency, but I don't see too many of them leaving. Signing is another thing. I'll leave that to my buddy Nick Pereira, the GM, to make those decisions to see of who gets brought in. But I digress. We'll head over here towards the Seawolves, who we finally have some news here. The schedule has dropped, so we have some understanding about matchups and all that. And we do finally know the identity of the expansion team. So, Belle, why don't we take a look at the upcoming schedule for our Seawolves?
Yeah, so week 1, our Seawolves will face the Rugby New York team. And that's a home match played at Starfire Sports Complex in Tequila, a rematch of the 2022 MLR title match. So that should be a good one. There's no question as to why that's number 1, probably. Week 2 versus Rugby Atlanta, that's February 24th. Week 3 at Dallas Jackals. Week 4 versus the Houston Sabercats. That's a Western Conference Finals rematch. Week 5 is a bye week. And surprisingly, as Chuck and I were talking, it's not their only bye week. On week 6, they face the Chicago Hounds in Chicago. Week 7 at New Orleans against the Gold. Week 8 versus San Diego back at home. That's a Western Eliminator rematch. Week 9 at Utah Warriors. Week 10 at Toronto Arrows. Week 11 versus Dallas Jackals. Week 12, that is their second bye week. So not sure if the MLR has done this before. Chuck, you can enlighten us on that, but it seems a little weird compared to what other sports go through.
From what I imagine and just following along these past 2 seasons again, I will admit to our rugby fans, Rucky the Seawolf, the official matchup, buddy, I'm sorry if I'm wrong on this. But from what I imagine, this is a second, just because, I mean, like, I know the NFL players have been pushing for a second bye week, considering that they play over the course of an 18-week season now. But I imagine this is what rugby MLR is doing, with how much contact there is with no pads in comparison to the NFL. This probably will be what we see as a second, sort of week off sort of preparation thing. Because as I was talking with Bell about, if we look on the official MLR website, it goes by rounds. There's round 4 and round 6, but no round 5 for the Seawolves. And there's round 11 and round 13, but no round 12. So I'm assuming that's what it is. If it's wrong, please correct us so that we can get that right going forward. But just from what I remember last year and just educated guess, that's what I'm assuming what it is.
Yeah. So after that week 12 bye week, they go off to Houston to face the SaberCats, back home versus the Chicago Hounds, travel to DC to face the Old Glory. On week 16, they are back home against the Utah Warriors. Week 17, home versus the New England Free Jacks. And then week 18 in San Diego. And that is the regular season finale.
So just looking at all of that, I know that, things have been surprising over the course of the year, last year with this team, whether it was technically being eliminated from the playoffs, coming back. Now, Chicago Hounds, it's an okay name. I'm not mad at it. It's not incredibly scary or anything, but congratulations to Chicago on their expansion team. If I gave you a calendar and you were going to circle a couple games, what would you put on there? I'm sure week one against Rugby New York, you actually traded a player of yours to Rugby New York in the offseason, the rematch of the title match at home too. What are you, I'm sure outside of that, because I'm sure that one's on there. What else are you looking at this upcoming season?
The funny thing is that I feel like in the calendar for this year, I was going to look for the 2 teams that are no longer playing this season. So it kind of leaves me with a question mark because, yes, definitely, of course, week 1, we fell just short last season. So it'll be interesting to see how they come out week 1 against the team that they lost to. So definitely circling that one. But I think I would also circle the Chicago Hounds just to see how they're going to start,
That's a good point. And I mean, what you see Dallas on the schedule. Dallas played their inaugural season last year, and I think that last home game that we played against them, Seattle dropped 73 points in so you'd like to see, in terms of parity, Chicago do well, but it is interesting to see how that'll work out. I'm not sure if there's going to be an expansion draft sort of thing, so I'll have to keep an eye out for that. But I expect the Seawolves team to be able to compete again this season. Some interesting additions in the offseason, whether it was the veterans, this past draft class, not having your captain Rickard Hadding for a few months, a few of these matches. But I expect this team to compete again. I don't expect much else. I know that the 2020 season and 2021 were rough, but just from what we saw in 2022, some additions, and knowing that, in terms of what you were poor on play wise can be fixed, ideally, right? I'm not the coach. I expect this team to compete, and I'm looking forward to that. It'll be great to get rugby back up and running, and hopefully kick some behind. So we'll look over here now. Well, we have to wait until what? February. I can do that. We look over here to our SeaDragons, who completed their draft. There's a lot going on. There's a lot of players initially, but knowing that there's going to be a camp and this roster will be slimmed down, some of these names we might not see. So why don't I take offense and I'll have you take defense, Bell. So we'll look at our quarterbacks, which is such an important position for this team and any sort of American football league that is. The quarterbacks, so the Seawolves went with Ben DiNucci, former Cowboys backup, and Steven Montez, former Colorado standout, former Washington Commanders player. That's an interesting. I know Montez has been an athletic quarterback in his career, and Ben DiNucci was actually more of a TikTok meme than anything else. So that, again, the quarterback position is so important. That'll be really interesting to look at. At the running back spot, TJ Hammonds, Brendan Knox, Scotty Phillips, and Morgan Ellison round out the backfield for Seattle. TJ Hammonds out of Arkansas. You can see here we've got Brendan Knox out of, I believe that's Marshall. Wide receivers, Kevin Shaw, Jawan Green, Ja'Cour Pearson, Damian Willis, James Madison, Rashard Davis, Jalen Redd, Tavion Cunningham, Blake Jackson, McLean Mannix, and Kevin Cassis here pictured, who was actually released by the Seahawks just a few weeks. This past week. We talked about him in roster moves, actually. And then kind of weird, the only tight end drafted is former Husky Joshua Perkins, which I don't really understand that. I mean, usually you at least have two tight ends. You use some two tight end set, but that's up to Coach Jim Haslett. And then on the offensive line, Chris Owens, Michael Manet, Jacob Capra, Julian Davenport here pictured, a former top pick, Liam Jimmins, Paul Gratton, Frank Ball, Tyrion Arsenault, Yvonne Latuli, and Josh Seltzner round out the offensive line on the offensive unit for our SeaDragons. Bell, why don't we take a look here at, I always, with the XFL, look for my former Huskies. Pictured here will be Sam Pama on the defensive line here, but it's interesting because he actually retired from football a little bit ago, and now he's back with the SeaDragons. So I don't know.
Yeah, so we'll look at our defensive line first. We have Elijah Ponder, Curtis Weaver, Austin Falio, Daniel Joseph, Tuzar Skipper, PJ Hall, Sama Pama, as you mentioned, Julius Turner, Eric Hansen, and O'Brien Goodson. We move on to our LBs here: Nico Lalos, Jordan Evans, Trey Walker, Emmanuel Smith, Antoine Jackson, Jalen Thomas, and Alex Thomas. And then our DBs: Chris Jones, Antoine Brooks, Lyndon Stevens, Shabari Davis, Reggie Robinson, Kareem Orr, Quinterio Cole. Oh, goodness, I am going to ruin this one. Rogesterman, Farism, Kendall Carsons, Roger Cray, and Michael Wright. And our specialists here: LS, Thomas Fletcher, PK, Brandon Reese, and Cameron. Oh, goodness, another tough one. Chuck, take a crack at it.
Nizialak.
Okay,
it's so funny. Names aside, we look at this sort of roster. I know it's pretty decently heavy, but I don't know. Nothing really jumps out at me, talent wise. It's like, oh, we got this guy, and we'll have to take a look into that next week and just kind of take a look at this roster and where it stands. And I'm sure we'll get a better idea once sort of training camp comes up for that. But just to know that this is an opportunity for a bunch of guys to go out and show the NFL, a league that's more structured, that's got better pay. Hey, I deserve a spot on your roster. Whether it's Kevin Cassis here that just got cut a week ago, shows out and say, hey, Seattle made a mistake in cutting me. Whether it's one of the quarterbacks, Ben DiNucci, Steven Montez. I know that PJ Walker with the Panthers, he had a great season with the XFL last year before it folded. Lyndon Steffens, in the cornerback room, he was a guy, I go back to the photo here, spent time with the Seahawks and never really cracked it, made a sticking impact. So at the end of the day, you just hope these guys are hungry and that they want to compete and they want to win, so that teams are able to say, hey, this guy's doing pretty well. Maybe we should take a second look at him. But I mean, I guess for you, is there anybody that sticks out in your or any position wise, whether it's the tight end room only having one guy?
It's definitely that. Yeah, like you said, normally at least a duo there. But I mean, I'm also kind of thrilled that their one pick just happens to be a Husky. So yeah, I'm excited to see how these guys do and then learn how to pronounce their names better.
Yeah, we'll get to that. And maybe when they have training camp, Bell, we can ask them how they do that. It'll be exciting to have more American football around. I know they start in the spring here. We'll have a busy spring, man. Golly, with the Mariners coming back and the storm season starting and the Sounders and the rain and the Kraken will still be running and the Seawolves and so if there might be a lack of coverage right now, don't worry. We'll be back. So we'll wrap it up here with the stars of the week, and in a perfect segue from that Seawolves SeaDragons segment, pardon me, to star of the week. I went with the SeaDragons primarily for the fact that this is a new team, and I'm hoping that they're able to really have a good season, put on a good show in Seattle. We especially know that these Seattle fans are great, and that they are going to put on, they'll show out. I'm sure they'll show out. I still see Seattle Dragon stuff from last year's season around. Oh no, pardon me, 2 years ago. I'm sorry, I know I said last year twice, but I still see the Dragon stuff around, which is like, this is a team that was only around for a few months, and people decide that, yeah, I'm going to wear that in the morning. So I'm excited. I really am, to get more football. It's going to be at Lumen Field, which is easy to get to. So I'm excited for that. You went with the Kraken as a whole, and I don't blame you for that. You could have honestly as well. We talked about it in the Kraken segment. You could have gone with Martin Jones, and I wouldn't blame you. But we've got some good photos for this. But what are your thoughts on your pick here for Star of the Week?
Well, for one, they are our only team that had any games last week. So, but also just the way their week went. I mean, 2 overtime wins. We discussed what our hopes were for this season, and you mentioned just looking better, getting better, their defense, and it looks like things are clicking right now because we just won 2 in overtime. So I just hope to continue to see success from this team.
So that'll about wrap us up. As again, like you were saying, kind of the only team going on. The Seahawks had their bye week. They return to action this upcoming week against the Raiders, a team that's, as Bell mentioned, coming off of a walk-off win. The Mariners, things will probably get a little bit quiet for them as free agency inches along. The Storm, we're hoping to get more Storm overseas news as hopefully the Storm website for that gets updated. The Sounders will keep you updated as best we can as the Men's World Cup team continues, as well as other Sounders who are playing for their respective national teams. The Kraken will continue their play, and it's exciting to see that go, but they will end their 6-game homestand, heading on the road for Las Vegas. And help me out, was it Anaheim? The rain offseason will continue. I expect them to kind of slow down as well. But then we've got SeaDragons to continue to look at, and the Seawolves, we have an idea of when they'll start. So it's just on the horizon, just over the hill. So do whatever you can to make today a great day. Keep yourselves well. As you can probably tell, my lips get all messed up with the cold wind. Keep yourself well out there. We're going to get some rain tomorrow, finally. It's been a long time, but as I said, do whatever you can. Yes, happy Thanksgiving. Enjoy that however you can. If you already put your Christmas tree up, I don't know, man. I was just never one of the people to do. I wonder if Belle did that. Anyway, We'll get you out of here. Do whatever you can to make today a great day.